few years ago, Jesus met me in a whole new way. Somehow I had known him my whole life, yet I didn't really know him. And then when I encountered his compassion, it changed everything. It was like even reading scripture came to life in a new way. And to be honest, I'd already been through a bachelor's and a master's degree studying ministry and biblical literature and all of that, but I didn't really come to love the Gospels until I encountered this kind of Jesus. So last year I was reading through the Gospel of Matthew, and just an ordinary reading, right? I've read it so many times before. I've heard the story time and time again, but there was one part that really captured me when Peter denied Jesus. I literally just started crying. I felt my insides just cringe and my heart break. Because I know that feeling probably. I know that feeling of, like Peter, wanting to say, Jesus, I will never forsake you. Even if everyone else does, I will be faithful. And then what happens? Inevitably, some sort of time comes when I'm not the follower that I want to be. And Jesus knew that. In fact, he told him it was going to happen. And in the Gospel of John, even after, he says this incredible prayer. After he's even warned his people, telling them, you will abandon me. Listen to the prayer he says. In chapter 17 of the Gospel of John, he says, I pray for them. I'm not praying for the world, but for those you have given me, because they are yours, essentially for his disciples, for his followers. He says, everything, Father, I have is yours, and everything you have is mine, and I am glorified in them. Jesus is saying, I am glorified in them, his disciples. Even after he has just told them, you will abandon and forsake me, he still says, I am glorified in them. He ends his prayer by saying, Lord, I made your name known to them and will continue to make it known, so that the love you have loved me with may be in them, and I may be in them. This is why I follow Jesus. Because the upside down kingdom for me is a God who has a high view of me, even when I'm at my lowest. When I was younger, I had this, what we sometimes call a worm theology. I would come into worship and I would say, God, you're so great and I'm barely worth anything. I'm worse than the scum on the bottom of your shoe, and yet you love me. And God met me there. And he said, that's not how I view you, Starla, because I made you in my image. God sees each of us with glory, even when we are so unglorified. What an upside down world that is our God's. What an upside down kingdom. That even when we fail, his glory is still in us. Even when we are rejecting him, he still prays that the Father may love us as the Father loves Jesus, and that Jesus may be in us too. Wow. I follow Jesus not because I have a low view of me, and because I'm so low and he's so great, that's why I follow him. No. I follow Jesus because he has a high view of me. He has a high view of you. He's thinking good thoughts towards you. He's wanting to glorify himself in you. And he wants God the Father to love you like God the Father loves Jesus, his Son. That kind of love changes everything. And it's not just a love in our heads, it's a love that sinks down into our hearts and our souls to feel so deeply loved, even while the world would tell us we're unlovable. And yet, he loves us. Yet, he thinks good thoughts towards us, and yet he thinks highly, yet he glorifies himself in us. That's the Jesus who's changing my life. So what does it mean for you? What does it mean, and how does it change your world if even when you're at your lowest, Jesus is viewing you with high regard?